Oh my gosh.
We're good. You got, we're good.
Okay, our last speaker, if we're gonna go ahead and continue, we can have our last speaker. Please have you state your name one more time, ma'am. Okay, Gene, sorry, we had to interrupt
Oh,
you.
that's quite all right.
Okay, you're at a minute 30 in, so please.
Minute 30 in. Well, I don't really, that was basically all I wanted to say is that we bought here thinking it was gonna, probably will be our forever home, but we loved it here because of, like I was saying, the community, the closeness, just the area. It's a beautiful area, and to put something like this in it, I agree with everybody else that had spoke. I don't believe it goes here. I just don't. That's all. We're not happy that it's backing right 25 feet behind our property. I mean, like everyone said, that's what we're gonna have to look at. So I think you guys can do better, but it's just my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, and that's everybody? Okay. All right, at this point, we'll go ahead and we'll close the public comment section of this and move off to the questions proponent by the commissioners directly. I'm sorry, close the public comment part of this. So now we'll go to questions by the commissioners.
I had a question about just quickly to clarify, so there's no entrance to the facility off of 72 except for emergency access.
Correct.
Okay,
So that'll be gated. There'll be a gate there
sure,
for emergency access vehicles,
but no, like.
but not
penetrance.
open to the tenants.
And then I saw, this is not to beat up your design, just to clarify. I saw like the 3D visual renderings on one of the corners, it looked like 7A and 7B had one roof.
Yeah,
That was just a rendering.
well, yeah, right, it was a rendering, yeah.
Sure,
And we're flexible on that. We talked to Barbara about that, and either we put a firewall in there or, to separate, the building, or we open it up like we did to allow for, fire access around the back side.
sure,
We'd rather have it all one building.
of course.
That's our preference. Because again, we lose a unit. Those are 12-foot wide units there. We lose a unit there. But we did that in cooperation with fire access to the back of the buildings.
Okay, and I think we'll circle back to that, but just some other questions I had was, and I think this might have come up earlier with the 6 feet question, was on the top topographical map. There was a section where the pond ends. So, and I noticed there was 3 river birches that would be going there.
Oh, yeah, right here.
Right, yes, exactly, thank you, and I was looking for the topographical piece, but it doesn't really matter, because you can see it there.
Yeah.
So how much of a slant? I'm concerned of the trees growing out at 40 degrees, because the ground is,
Yeah, they don't do that. Yeah.
that's not with river birches, that's.
No tree will ever grow on an angle off of the slope. They always grow straight up.
Sure.
No matter how no matter how you plant it, it's always gonna go straight
They're
up
looking
to the
for
sun.
sun.
Yeah.
Okay. But then with the pond though. You mentioned that those would be 4 to 5 feet high. So I was wondering, based on the topographical changes of the property, like 4 to 5 feet high, excuse me, from which point? Like at what point along that road will they be 4 to 5 feet high?
Where are we talking exactly?
Oh, around the retention pond.
Oh, the walls. The
Yes,
retention
yes,
walls.
sir.
Yeah, they're in the interior. They're not. There was a photograph
Sure.
that we did on the rendering that shows it.
You're driving up.
Yeah, as you're driving up, you don't see them.
So that is.
They're down in the basin.
17. Yes, and I'm not actually worried like that. That makes sense to me, but I guess what I'm thinking more so is from that bottom corner, the southeast corner. That's the lowest point on the property, right? So is there gonna be like a 20-foot wall there effectively to hold in the retaining pond?
No, the
pond?
walls are inside the basin. They're down here. You don't see the walls from here.
So it would be dug deep
It
enough.
basically does this. It's the property, the south property line is here,
Uh-huh,
comes up, it burns up,
sure,
and then it goes down into the basin.
okay.
The walls are on that down slope that you don't see. You can't see them from this area
Gotcha,
here.
so, but I guess
All you're gonna see is
alternatively,
water.
will there be like a 20-foot berm?
No, 9 feet.
9 feet from the bottom
From this very tip right here to the top of the berm was
is
9
9
feet.
feet, okay,
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And then another question I
then it goes-
have,
And then that's the crown. That's
sure,
the high point.
That's the high
going
point.
down.
and then the
and again-
walls underneath the berm,
Yeah,
to my question earlier.
yeah, correct. It's on the backside of the
Sure.
berm that you don't see.
Another question I had was, based on some experience we've had in Sleepy Hollow. So we have the Sleepy Hollow pool, back here, some direction. And I don't know, it's about 40, 50 years old, and it was leaching like millions of gallons of water into the ground. And it was like soaking the parking lot and the steps were always wet and et cetera, et cetera. My concern is dumping water onto the neighbors out of that retention pond in a decade or two. And you're not an engineer, I'm not either, I guess. Do you have any experience or like insight into maybe how that would work with the existing stormwater infrastructure? Does that make sense? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
I don't think I can intelligently answer that.
Sure.
Because like, I'm not an engineer. I do know how this works, though. This fills with rainwater. Because you're gonna get rainwater off of the roofs and off of the impervious surface here. It fills this retention pond. And this is engineered per Kane County Stormwater Ordinance. So it will hold what's called the 100-year rain.
Sure,
So it will hold that water and then it'll be released into this stormwater ditch basically over here on the east side of the
Gotcha.
property.
that's already there.
It's already
I'm
there.
familiar with
Right.
it, because it's behind that strip
It'll
mall.
be released. Typically, what we have now in Wakanda is it comes out through a 4-inch orifice.
Sure,
So it's a slow, gradual release.
okay,
And that's what, that's the whole premise behind stormwater management.
sure.
Is you hold it, you release it slowly, so it doesn't
Maintenance
flood.
system.
Yeah, and when, as a matter of fact, in Wakanda, where we built that facility, we fixed the flooding of the neighborhood to the north.
Oh,
They-
interesting,
When it's in the condition that it's in now, like this property, it's the rainwater is unimpeded.
sure,
It can flow wherever it wants in whatever direction. Well, it's going down here, because this is the low point of the property. But it'll fill up this drainage ditch
sure,
unimpeded. Well, we're gonna actually slow it down and hold it. Same thing happened in Wakanda. It was flooding the neighbors to the north. We built a large retention pond there. They've never flooded again.
and that was to the west, correct, in at Wakanda?
Well, no, to the northwest. Yeah,
Northwest, sure.
northwest, yeah.
Gotcha, on that, between the church and the,
Yeah, it goes up from the church and our property to the north and it goes into the next subdivision.
gotcha,
It was actually flooding the subdivision even across the street.
okay.
Now, there's none. It's the same engineer.
Same,
I'm using the
and
same engineer, same premise.
concept, yeah.
It-
okay.
It's good stormwater management, I have to say. I have to, take my hat off to some of these municipalities and counties for doing this kind of stuff, because it really improves the flooding.
Makes a difference, yeah.
There isn't any.
Sure, okay. And then clarifying question I had, maybe for Mr. Schuster, if you don't mind, is the sprinklers question. Do we require sprinklers now? We do. Okay, so, but that is outside of our purview.
That's a building code question or a building code variance. It's outside your purview.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha. But one of the concerns I did have around the fire code holds, which is the access 360 degrees around the building, which I believe is part of the International Fire Code. I did some research and it had to do with 150 feet access. And I'm not seeing that.
That's why the cut here. So that there's access here, there's access here, access here, access here. Because this building here doesn't have a drive aisle behind it.
Sure, which, and I guess that's the genesis of my concern, and then the one on the south as well.
Yeah,
But there isn't, the 12 feet isn't enough to get a truck in there, though.
no,
For
it's
sure.
meant just to get hose access.
Okay, sure.
And
'Cause
I
I-
believe it's is it 100 or 150 feet? I can't
150
remember.
for sure, that's what I put up
100
today,
feet.
but it's not as the crow flies, right? It's access path, but I guess you're saying, because they would pull up a truck to the gap,
Yes, then they can reach.
then at every point, 100, because I'm trying to do the math, trying to think through that, because it's a 150-foot building. So right, if you're in the middle, you have to go all the way around, that's more than 150 feet. To your point, if you're at the point of the gap in the alley, that's
That cuts it,
whatever,
yeah.
15 feet plus. But if the fire's at the bottom of the building, that's 150 feet, excuse me, but then you would just park on the bottom of it
Right,
and then
right,
pull the hose around.
right.
So, yeah. But the access issue for the trucks, 360 degrees still holds. Just because of the nature of the site plan. Right, because I mean, there's no way to get a truck in there as well,
No, but you can get a hose,
but you get with the
Yeah.
hose.
as long as they can get a hose. Within 100 feet.
Mhm. I think that was the extent of my questions at this point.
And remember too, there's no doors on the back side. Doors
Sure.
in the front.
Of course,
So,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know, what is it? They're not gonna go and drag a hose around the back where there's no door. Open up the door.
for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
And a steel building, it won't, like, it's not gonna
Yeah.
bust out a window or something, yeah, no, I agree.
Has the fire department taken a look at this yet? We don't really see any measurements for like turning radius.
We haven't done the full engineered turning radius, no, we haven't done like full schematic yet, no.
On your renderings, the stucco area of the buildings showed to be white.
Yeah,
This shows to be brown, and you said that it's not the exact color, but it's close. What color would it be?
it's gonna be an off-white. I guess that you're open to your interpretation, off-white, light gray or a light tan. We're open to any one of those colors, but it's not gonna be that color. No,
Right.
that color, that's the only sample that I could get.
Yeah, I
You know,
understand.
So that shows the texture, not the color.
Thank you.
Could this be installed either way? Face south, face south?
It's meant that the stucco, the embossed stucco is to the outside.
Okay.
Yeah, the white is to the inside.
I got a couple questions for you. Just to be 100% clear on this, all of those trees on the south side of the property will get taken out, correct?
Yeah.
Completely,
In order to do the excavating, they'll have to.
all right, and will you be selling any items that would generate sales tax revenue for the village?
I
Now
know,
you're gonna have somebody on site, a human body
Yeah.
on site
yeah,
during normal business
Yeah.
hours?
we don't anticipate, I mean, I know Conrad said that, he'd be selling merchandise.
Yeah.
No, we don't have any intent on doing that, so the short answer to that is no. There's no revenue in that. As I told you before, my wife worked at public for it, and, in a year's time, how many boxes did you sell? Yeah. We're not gonna try to tell you that that's gonna be a revenue generator.
All right, and then another question. This drawing shows these walls
Yes,
for the retention ponds.
correct.
How are those walls built?
They're,
Are they brick? Are they concrete form?
they're block, yeah, they're concrete formed. They can be different colors. They can be
Gotcha.
buff, beige, and that, they're about 60 pounds a piece. And they're 16 inches wide. I think they're either 16 or 18 inches wide. And then about 9 inches deep. And
How are they secured as you're stacking them?
there's different manufacturers do it different ways. Some of them have pins so that they're pinned each time. They all have a batter. Batter meaning how they're laid, into the wall, into the slope. They usually have a
So they
batter.
don't cave in.
Correct, right. A batter meaning they're leaning backwards a little bit. 3/4 of an inch is the batter. So each level you go up, you go back about 1/4 to 1 inch there.
What were those dimensions again?
I think they're 16 inches wide. They're either 16 or 18 inches wide and approximately 9 inches deep. Now, we may be required to make them even deeper, depending upon the engineering of the wall. Those will probably require engineered drawings.
I'm sure they would.
Yeah, because they're gonna be holding back some dirt.
And are you gonna be pouring curbs? You show a curb.
Yeah, no,
You're
no,
not.
we're not. No, I don't anticipate curbs there. No, the architect put that in as a standard thing. I like the look, but I don't know that I wanna have that there.
And you show this item here. It's like a racetrack around the retention pond.
That's the,
Is that an overflow? Little spot that runs around.
there's two walls. One will be one wall here and another wall there.
And what's in between them?
Grass, dirt.
Okay. Just to strengthen it, I'm sure.
It was so that the wall wasn't so monotonous. It broke it up. We can even add some landscaping in between those walls as well. So it's not just grass.
And then the storm sewer design, you didn't have an overlay of that in here, where the entry points of the water are gonna be from the
Yeah.
far northwest corner all the way to the retention pond. Do you know where they're gonna be?
I'm gonna imagine you're gonna have a main one through here that'll dump into the pond. This building here has downspouts on the south side of the building where they'll come down and then they'll go underneath the drive aisle and then dump into the building. So I would think that we would probably have one here, probably another one here to pick up all the water. So
So you're
we
figuring,
usually build the buildings on a 1% slope. So the drive aisles have to follow that. So it'll be a 1% slope from west to east and from north to south.
but it would be like an open manhole. That would
Correct.
flow into, go underneath the whole property and feed right into that.
Correct. We don't want to use surface drainage, because you get too many units there and you get too much surface drainage, you run the risk of flooding a unit. And we certainly don't want that. So yeah, it's underground stormwater drainage.
And then your north side emergency entrance,
Yes,
is that gonna be concreted?
probably asphalt.
Curved?
Yeah, that'll have to be curved there, yeah. The concrete will be used on the interior of the buildings. For the floors. We will have concrete floors, they're not asphalt.
Well, I certainly appreciate the residents being here and as well as you coming back the second time for this. When you started off with your landscape background, I wish it was a landscape project. It would probably, in my judgment, be a better fit. You've done a tremendous job of refining and listening. But it's kind of one of those things that I side with folks that live here and why I live here. And it's nothing against anything that you presented, because you've done both of you done a professional job, so thank you for that. And, it's good to hear people here in the community as well, a lot of them I know and have worked with professionally, so it's good to hear and have this public hearing and, the refinements you made were good. It's just, I personally, I'm thinking, I wish it was, like I said, I wish you were coming here with a greenhouse, or more of a flat hill idea of a nursery. And I know it's like 2020, but that's just my thought, that if it was something where we were enhancing the landscape with Mother Nature. So personally, I feel different than disagree with some of the others have spoken, and it's not about the project that you presented, because again, you both done a nice, very professional job. Thanks for taking that time, spending those time and money.
Any other questions? Good. No? Okay. All right, we will go ahead and officially close the public hearing and move on to the deliberations and discussion of the special use and the variance request for 1601 West Main Street. First thing we'll discuss and determine is the findings of fact for the special use.
Not everybody speak at once, you know? I think it's a tough question. I think, yeah, I want to reiterate what Commissioner Adelano said about the professionalism and the respect that you guys have given us and the village. I think we appreciate your consideration being here. And I think, yeah, to Mr. Adelano's point, it takes time, obviously, to be here now and money to put all this together. We appreciate that very much, that you would consider our village. That being said, I think it's just a tough choice because of the nature of our village and different things that are, say, legacies of the village. I guess I'm referring to the no sheds regulation on the residents themselves. I think for me personally, it makes it extremely difficult to allow a giant shed to come in and effectively tell the residents, no, you can't pay to put one up in your own backyard, but we'll let you pay somebody else to store your stuff. Feels a little bit inappropriate to me. I also think that the idea of it, given it's been vacant for 50 years or whatever it is, this use may potentially be the highest and best use. I'm not sure. I'm not a appraiser or anything like that, but I think it is inconsistent with the comprehensive land use plan that was issued in 2009. I'm looking specifically at the commercial development section, which the goal of provide an adequate and attractive commercial base to serve the needs of village residents. And then also for office industrial development, a strong diversified employment base, which will provide jobs and strengthen the economy of Sleepy Hollow. Unfortunately, I think, although the economy has changed significantly since 2009, I don't see this being consistent with strengthening the economy of Sleepy Hollow. And I don't think that it's an attractive commercial use that serves the needs of the village residents. I think, to my point earlier, you did a great job with everything we've asked you to do. And the plant, I have full faith and confidence that the nursery and the plantings around it would be something nice. But I think still what we're talking about, it doesn't take away from a storage facility being there. And I have not seen, not to give more credence than is necessary to social media use, because I think, squeaky wheel gets the oil in that case to a certain extent versus like problems and solutions. But I think I have yet to see personally hear from any of my neighbors or see any sort of sentiment that it's a valuable service for the community that we don't have within a reasonable distance. That also being said, and again, I'm going back and forth, this would probably be the nicest storage facility we would have within 10 miles. But I'm not sure that that is a need that we have significantly in the village. So I just wanted to throw those thoughts out there to the group. I don't know if anybody else feels the same way, but I thought it was important to kind of anchor us in the comprehensive land use plan and those sort of things.
If I might interject, number one, we should concentrate on the testimony and evidence that's been presented here and not on social media. None of that was introduced here. Just,
Absolutely.
I know it's there,
Personal sentiment.
but we're looking at a record. We've taken a lot of steps with some difficulties tonight to make sure we get a good record of these proceedings. Second, just to remind you that the village board did make a decision that a self-storage facility could be an appropriate use in B2. But it made it a special use, and another name for that is a conditional use. And the point of that is that it's a recognition that that type of facility, if it were to be allowed in that zoning district, may need to be restricted or conditioned on things that pertain to it. You will recall when Mr. Ryback made his petition, you attached 12 or 13 conditions. Those were under discussion and were addressed. All the same, you're correct, Mr. Erickson, to allude to the comprehensive plan. That's one of the factors that should be considered. The character of the village is another. As to whether this proposal, as presented at this location, would be an appropriate special use. So, it's kind of a line. You're looking at the factors that are set out in the code. You also have a staff report from Mrs. Stetmer. I hope you've all had a chance to look at that. In fact, I think there's an updated, there's an original one and an updated one that tells you about her considerations in reviewing the plans for this, or I'm sorry, let me say it this way, her review of the application that's been submitted for this special use. Yes.
You all have that page in your packets. It's the one that starts listing 1 through 8 on the front. What are you, the findings for the special use? Finding of fact for that requirement.
I guess one question would be, is there going to be a motion to approve it or a motion to deny, not approve, to recommend approval, or a motion to deny, recommend deny?
I think that before we move forward with that, I'd like to point out that Sleepy Hollow has very little area for development. Sleepy Hollow needs the money. I'd much sooner see a project, although his project is beautiful, and I'm very familiar with his nursery area out in on Rand Road. It was beautiful. Took care of the property, was a show place. But it doesn't bring in any tax money. We're not getting any sales tax money into the village. It's not generating any income. I'd rather see something that generates income. And that's all I have.
As far as the finding of facts for the special use, we'll go ahead and have a vote on approve or deny. You will approve the special use.
Well, if you recommend approval, then there may be a series of conditions about the petition as filed, about the the hours, the security, the access, the lighting, the fencing, the appearance, you've got samples in front of you, all those things were addressed. Or could be addressed. If it's a motion to recommend denial, then there may be a different set of findings that you make that it lacks this or lacks that, or doesn't meet this standard or that standard. We have one set of comments so far. I guess two, but we have a comment about income production or revenues from that side.
I guess if there's no other comments, I will move to recommend denial. And I'm sorry, Mr. Schuster, there's certain considerations or,
Right, I mean, you mentioned two that I heard, it's that the proposal in front of you is not in character with the village and does not, or is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan.
correct. And so we would kind of explain ourselves. That would be an
Well,
opportunity
those
with
would
the
be
findings of fact.
Those would be
That would be
findings
findings
to
of fact.
submit to the village board in support of the motion if it gets a second in some discussion.
So I will make that motion.
Second.
All in favor,
Well, any discussion?
any discussion further on that, on the denials? Outside of income and
Well, there were 2 points.
character of the village.
2 points, not in the character of the village and
Not meeting. the
not
meeting.
consistent with the comprehensive plan. There may be others, I don't know. Let's see what,
Would you possibly go in with, adding in that, multitude of neighbors have come in here and have said no to it and asked us not to put it through?
well, it's your
Would that be part of
findings.
it?
I mean, obviously that record has been made.
Okay,
Um,
and I have to say, you have done, excuse me. You came back and you really worked hard on it, I can see that. But I think you got 10 pounds of poop and you got a 5-pound failure putting it in. And I just can't see that this is gonna work. You're not gonna be able to make any of the turning radiuses in here for any engines in here.
It's shrinking and shrinking, you know.
Yeah. And we don't even have really, dimensions to work off of.
Anything else?
Voice vote.
Okay. All right, we'll do a roll call vote of approve or denial.
based on those.
Yeah, based on those findings, on the 2 findings. Start with that.
Mr. Erickson,
So it's a yes for my motion to deny.
all right, Mr. Hoff,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes,
Mr. Plass,
Yes,
Mr. Adelano.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
I
it
don't-
requires 6 votes, so we have a 5-0 so far. You'll have, I'd ask you to vote.
I would agree with the motion.
All right, so 6 votes. All right, that would be the recommendation. You want to, it might be useful for you to make a record of what your recommendations are or are not in regard to the 2 variances, because you're sending this all up to the village board for its consideration. So there's a petition for variance of the number of buildings on the site.
If I had to say anything, I would say no to that variation. Like, it's just too many buildings on the site here.
I would agree. Same reasons we talked about.
Well, that sort of goes to the special use so much that the variance is, has a different set of standards. You'll recall. It has to be based on a particular hardship that arises out of the shape or, yeah, I'm looking for the words.
Condition, I believe, is.
The narrowness, shallowness of the shape, the surroundings or condition of the property or the topographical conditions. Then create a peculiar or exceptional practical difficulty or particular hardship. That's sort of the starting point. The village code requires you also first to determine if it will, or that to approve it, or to recommend approval of it. It does not impair air or light to adjacent property. It does not unreasonably increase traffic congestion. It does not increase a fire hazard or otherwise endanger the public. It would not unreasonably diminish property values in the surrounding area, and it does not otherwise impair public health, safety, comfort, or welfare. So first, those 5 items should be touched on.
Well, I think can we start with the condition at the top? Because if I'm referring to the village report. The from Barb. On the last page. She mentions, and I would agree, that both variances are a hardship. It says here of the proponent's own making, not because of pre-existing condition over which the proponent has no control. I would say it's of no making because it's a larger, it's an economic consideration, but I would say that it's not a hardship specific to the lot itself. Desire for profit, however fair or not, is not necessarily a hardship on the property itself in question.
What gives me pause is where the village code says first. Comment on these other items.
In the summary, you're saying?
No, it's not in the summary, it's in the village code.
Oh, sure.
The summary highlights the hardship language. I agree. But says in considering any proposed variation, the planning and zoning commission before making a recommendation to the board shall first determine that the variation does not impair the light, does not increase the traffic, does not increase the danger. And then the justification for considering this variation is the exceptional situation of the particular piece of property, its shape, conditions, surroundings, or topographic conditions.
Gotcha. So we have to get to the 5 questions first. So
It'd be good to do that.
yeah. So do you mind running us through it one more time, Eric?
Not at all. Not impair air or light to adjacent property.
Agree.
Yeah, I'd agree. It doesn't. The 8 buildings, I don't think.
Not unreasonably increase traffic congestion.
Agree.
Great.
Yeah,
Agreed, yeah.
Not increase fire hazard
Agree.
or otherwise endanger the public.
Agree.
I would agree. I think unless we want to anchor somehow to the fire code we talked about earlier, with the 8 buildings being more
I
difficult.
mean, if there was full compliance with the fire, so I could agree to that, but without it, I
Yeah,
can't.
So the answer is it does not increase a fire hazard if there's compliance with the fire code,
Yes,
which means
100% compliance with the fire
Yeah, full
code,
compliance.
sprinklers. And driveways behind the
Yeah.
west and south.
Vehicle, emergency vehicle
Yes.
access.
Yeah.
Okay. Not unreasonably diminish the property values in the area.
I say the number of buildings and the site congestion could potentially negatively impact property values.
Anyone have any other comment about that?
Sure would make it tougher to sell the property.
Yeah,
Last, not otherwise impair the public health, safety, comfort, or welfare.
say it's inconsistent with the character of the village.
Public comments
All right,
Yeah,
talk to that.
on the record comment, certainly support that.
all right, then we get back to the main condition, which is that if there's a particular hardship or specific practical difficulties arising out of the property itself.
I would say it's an, market concern versus a true hardship of the property in question.
Economic.
Yeah, economic in nature versus property specific.
Any other comment on that? All right, then a motion for recommendation,
It'll be for the fire variation.
For the building.
one at a time. This is in regard to the number of buildings.
So similarly, based on that finding of facts, it would be this, the motion to recommend denial.
Sounds
of
like it.
variance. So moved.
Second.
2 seconds.
Last.
Last, thank you. Any other discussion?
Anything else? Okay.
Mr. Hoff,
Is it a yes to the no motion?
yes.
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Class,
Yes.
Mr. Adelano,
Yes.
Mr. Erickson,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
All right, now the same set of questions would apply to a request for a variation of the floor area ratio from 0.23 to 0.284. Anyone have any different suggestions or comments on impairing air or light to adjacent property?
Based, and I guess I could just say based on the FAR is related to the 8 buildings, right? Because it's the space of the 8 buildings. So I think just conceptually, right, I'm following, I think that would make sense to be consistent.
So you would suggest the same findings?
I would, yeah.
Yes.
Maybe you don't mind just running through them real quick so we can be sure. So it would not affect the lighting.
Traffic congestion, not increase traffic congestion. Not increase the fire hazard or endanger the public.
If in full compliance with,
If there's
Yeah.
full compliance with the fire code as to vehicle access and sprinklers. Not unreasonably diminish the property values. And the comment there was that it probably will.
based on
Would
the site congestion,
diminish property value.
yeah.
And then not otherwise impair public health, safety, comfort, or welfare.
And then, yeah, I think it's consistent.
Anything different? Then again, there has to be exceptional situations, surroundings, or conditions of the property. Because of its shape or shallowness or narrowness or topographical condition that would create a peculiar and exceptional practical difficulty or particular hardship in this instance.
I would say the same,
Economic would be it.
yeah.
You don't find a hardship that arises out of the conditions of the property.
Correct.
All right. Motion,
Have a motion?
So moved to deny the variance, the FAR variance.
Second?
Second last.
discussion,
Anything else? No?
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Plas,
Yes,
Mr. Adelano,
Yes.
Mr. Erickson,
Yes.
Mr. Hoff,
Yes.
Chairman Waters.
Yes.
Okay. That concludes, that part of the agenda, correct?
Okay, now, public comment?
Ladies and gentlemen, there's a public comment period. It's required in every public meeting. This is not the public hearing on the petition. This is just a meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. If anyone has a public comment, you can speak up now.
Hi, Deborah Vernon, 821 Locust Drive. I just want to thank all of the planning commissioners for voting tonight. It's so much appreciated. I think all of the residents' hard work and communicating and engaging with our village officials and doing all the right things as residents. And we just so much appreciate you guys doing the right thing for Sleepy Hollow as well. I'm so happy. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any names?